At my own birthday dinner, my son stood up in front of everyone and said, "Mom, just sign the house over to us. You're getting old. You don't need all that space anymore." 23 people heard him say it. I smiled and said nothing. What he didn't know was that I'd found the documents that morning, the ones with his signature on my deed, and the ones showing he'd taken out a $165,000 line of credit against my home without my knowledge. Good day, dear listeners. It's Emma here. I'm so glad you're joining me today. Please like this video and stay with me until the very end. And do me a favor. Drop a comment telling me which city you're listening from. I love knowing how far these stories travel. Let me take you back to the beginning. My name is Helen. I'm 72 years old, and for 38 years, I worked as a registered nurse at Northwestern Memorial Hospital in Chicago. My husband, Frank, was a high school shop teacher. We weren't rich. We were careful. We packed lunches, drove used cars, took vacations to Wisconsin instead of Hawaii. But by the time Frank retired, we owned our home outright. A 3-bedroom brick bungalow in Oak Park that we'd bought in 1986 for $94,000. Today it's worth over $620,000. Frank passed away 5 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. It moved fast. One day he was complaining about back pain, and 11 weeks later, I was picking out a casket. When the fog of grief finally lifted, I found myself alone in a paid-off house with $340,000 in savings, a pension, and Social Security. My son, David, was my only child. 44 years old, married to a woman named Melissa. They had 2 kids, Lily, who was 11, and Ryan, who was 8. David worked in commercial real estate. Melissa hadn't held a job since Lily was born. They lived in Naperville, about 45 minutes west, in a house that cost more than I thought houses could cost. After Frank died, David started calling more often. At first, I was touched. Then I noticed the pattern. Every call ended the same way. "Mom, things are tight right now. The market's slow. Could you help us out until my next commission comes through?" The first time, it was $12,000. "Property taxes," he said. They'd miscalculated. Then $8,500 for Ryan's orthodontist. Then $18,000 because Melissa's car needed replacing. She'd found a deal on a used Lexus, but it had to be purchased by Friday. Then $25,000 because Lily's private school required a full year up front. Every single time, David promised to pay me back. "Next quarter, Mom, I've got 2 deals closing. I'll wire it right back." He never did. And I never asked, because what kind of mother hounds her own son for money? By the time my 72nd birthday rolled around in March, I had transferred, and I know the exact number because I eventually counted $196,000 to David and Melissa over 3 years. That was more than half my savings. But I didn't know that yet. Not the total. I knew it was a lot, but I'd never sat down and added it up. I was about to. 3 days before my birthday, I went looking for my property tax bill. I keep a filing cabinet in the basement. Frank's system, meticulously organized. I opened the drawer labeled House and found something that shouldn't have been there. A document from the Cook County Recorder of Deeds, dated 14 months earlier. It showed that the title to my home had been amended. David Robert Novak had been added as a joint tenant with right of survivorship. I stared at it for a long time. I hadn't signed this. I hadn't agreed to this. But there was my signature or something that looked very much like it. Then I found the second document. A home equity line of credit from Midwest Federal Bank. $165,000. Secured against my home. The borrower listed was David Robert Novak. The balance drawn was $141,200. My hands were shaking so badly I had to sit down on the basement stairs. My son had forged my signature, added himself to my deed, and borrowed $141,000 against the house I'd lived in for nearly 40 years. I didn't sleep that night. Or the next. I just kept pulling documents, cross-referencing dates, piecing together what he'd done. The amended deed was filed using a power of attorney, one I'd signed years ago when Frank was dying, so David could help manage our affairs during the worst of it. I'd never revoked it. I never thought I'd need to. Then came my birthday dinner. David had organized it at a restaurant in downtown Oak Park. 23 people. My sister Dorothy, my nieces, neighbors, friends from the hospital. Melissa was there in a new dress, all smiles. And then, between the main course and dessert, David clinked his glass and stood up. "I want to say something about my mom," he began. Everyone smiled. "She's an incredible woman. Worked her whole life. Raised me right. But here's the thing, she's 72 now, living alone in that big house, rattling around in 3 bedrooms by herself." My stomach tightened. "Melissa and I have been talking, and we think it's time for Mom to consider her options. Maybe downsize. Maybe come live closer to us. And the house, well, it makes sense to start transitioning the property. Keep it in the family. Avoid the tax headaches down the road." He looked right at me. "Mom, just sign the house over to us. You don't need all that space anymore. We'll take care of everything." 23 people stared at me. Some nodded along like it made perfect sense. My sister Dorothy's face was frozen. I smiled. "That's sweet of you to think about, honey. Let's talk about it later." But inside, something went cold and still. He wasn't just asking for the house. He already had it or thought he did. This performance was about getting me to make it official, to sign willingly what he'd already taken by fraud. The next morning, I called my friend Barbara. We'd worked together at Northwestern for 22 years. She'd been a hospital administrator before retiring. Practical, sharp, no nonsense. More importantly, her daughter was an attorney. "Barb, I need help." "What kind of help?" "The kind where my son might go to jail." 2 hours later, I was sitting in the office of Karen Webb, elder law specialist, explaining everything. I brought the documents, the amended deed, the HELOC paperwork, the power of attorney David had used. Karen studied them carefully. Then she looked up. "Mrs. Novak, your son committed forgery and fraud. He used an expired power of attorney, or rather, one that should have been revoked, to alter your property title and secure a loan against your home. This is a felony." Hearing it stated so plainly made my chest hurt. What are my options? Several. First, we petition to remove his name from the deed and void the fraudulent transfer. Second, we report the HELOC to the bank as unauthorized. Third, and this is your decision, we can file a criminal complaint against my own son, against the person who stole from you. Yes, I asked her to start with the civil remedies. I wasn't ready to think about criminal charges. Not yet. Karen filed the paperwork that same week. She also helped me revoke the power of attorney, establish a living trust, and restructure my will. David was removed as beneficiary. Instead, I set up educational trusts for Lily and Ryan, accessible only when they turned 25. Managed by an independent trustee. When your son gets notified about the deed challenge, things will escalate quickly. Karen warned me. Be prepared. She was right. David called on a Tuesday evening. I was washing dishes, listening to the radio. His voice was tight, barely controlled. Mom, what the hell is going on? I got a letter from some attorney saying you're challenging the property title. What is this? It's exactly what it sounds like, David. I don't understand. We agreed to put my name on the house. Don't you remember? After Dad died, you said. I never agreed to that. And you know it. Silence. Then, Mom, you're confused. This happened 2 years ago. We sat at your kitchen table and you signed the papers. You're just forgetting. There it was. The script I'd been expecting. Confusion. Memory loss. The implication that I was losing my mind. David, I have a perfect memory of every conversation we've had about this house. We never discussed adding your name to the deed. You used a power of attorney I signed when your father was dying. That's insane. Why would I? And then you took out a $165,000 line of credit against my home. Without telling me. The silence lasted so long, I thought the call had dropped. Mom. His voice changed. Softer now. Careful. I think you need to see a doctor. These kinds of accusations, this paranoia, it's not like you. Maybe we should get you evaluated. Melissa and I have been worried for a while. I've already been evaluated. Full cognitive assessment. Dr. Patterson at Rush. Perfect score. Another long pause. We need to talk about this in person, he said. As a family, my attorney has advised me not to meet with you without legal representation present. Attorney? Jesus, Mom. You hired a lawyer against your own son. You stole my house, David. What did you expect? He hung up. 40 minutes later, Melissa called. Her approach was different tears, not threats. Helen, please. David is devastated. He made a mistake, okay? He was trying to protect you. The real estate market is unpredictable. And he thought if something happened to you, the house would get tied up in probate. He was trying to help. By forging my signature and taking out a $165,000 loan, he was going to tell you. The timing I was never right. And the loan was for an investment that was supposed to double. He was going to pay it all back, just like he was going to pay back the $196,000 I've given you over 3 years. She went quiet. Melissa, I have bank records for every transfer. Every single one was supposed to be temporary. Every single one was a promise. Not $1 has come back. That's not fair. We've been struggling. David's commissions are unpredictable. And the kids' expenses. David makes over $200,000 a year. You drive a Lexus? Lily goes to private school. You just renovated your kitchen. Where exactly is the struggle? She started crying. Real tears or performed ones, I couldn't tell anymore. I'd lost the ability to distinguish. Please don't do this, she whispered. Think about Lily and Ryan. They love their grandma. I love them too. That's not what this is about. If you go through with this, you'll never see them again. I'd been expecting the threat, but it still landed like a punch. I took a breath. Good night, Melissa. I hung up and sat in the dark kitchen for a long time. Barbara came over the next morning with coffee and muffins. She'd been checking on me daily since this started. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where David claimed I'd signed papers I never signed. How are you holding up? She asked. I keep thinking about when he was little. 8 years old, saving his allowance to buy Frank a birthday present. This awful ceramic coffee mug he painted himself. Frank used it every single day until it cracked. Barbara reached across the table and squeezed my hand. That boy still exists somewhere, I said. I just don't know where he went. People change when money's involved. I saw it at the hospital all the time. Families ripping each other apart over inheritance before the patient was even cold. Frank's not even cold. 5 years. 5 years. And my son is stealing my house, which is why you fight. 2 weeks later, David escalated. Karen called me on a Thursday morning. They've filed a petition for guardianship. They're claiming you're mentally incapacitated and unable to manage your own affairs. My blood went cold. On what grounds? They cite erratic financial behavior, closing accounts, hiring attorneys, making accusations against family members. They also claim you've shown signs of confusion and memory loss. They have a letter from a Dr. Morrison claiming you need evaluation. I've never seen a Dr. Morrison in my life. I know. That's our first line of defense. We have Dr. Patterson's assessment. Full cognitive workup from 3 weeks ago. Perfect results. Their petition is garbage, but we need to take it seriously. The court date was set for May 9th. Karen prepared aggressively. She subpoenaed David and Melissa's financial records, bank statements, credit card bills, tax returns, the HELOC disbursement records. When the documents arrived, Karen called me into her office. Her expression was grim. The $141,000 drawn from the HELOC. I can now tell you where it went. She spread the records across her desk. $62,000 went to a failed real estate investment in Arizona. A condo flip that went underwater. $34,000 paid off credit card debt. Most of it. Luxury purchases. Restaurants. Vacations. $28,000 went to their mortgage, which was 3 months behind. And $17,000 went to a country club initiation fee. A country club. My home, the home Frank and I spent 30 years paying off, had been leveraged so my son could join a country club. There's more, Karen continued. Remember the $25,000 you gave them for Lily's school tuition? Yes. According to the school's records, they were on a partial scholarship. Tuition was only $11,000. The rest went into their checking account. I sat very still. He lied about the amount. He lied about most of it. The $18,000 for Melissa's car? The Lexus was leased? The $8,500 for Ryan's orthodontist? Insurance covered 80%. The actual out-of-pocket was $1,700. Every lie, laid out in black and white. Every time I'd open my wallet because I trusted my son, he'd inflated the number and pocketed the difference. We're presenting all of this to the judge, Karen said. May 9th was gray and cold. Unusual for Chicago in spring. I sat in a Cook County courtroom with Karen on one side and Barbara behind me. Across the aisle, David sat with Melissa and their attorney, a man named Paul Brennan, who looked expensive. Judge Robert Callahan entered. Mid-60s, reading glasses, no patience for theatrics. The petitioner's side went first. Brennan painted a picture of a confused elderly woman making rash decisions, alienating her loving family, falling prey to outside influences. David testified, calm, practiced, concerned. My mother has always been generous, he said. After my father died, I tried to step in, help manage things. She was overwhelmed. She agreed to add my name to the house so I could handle property taxes, maintenance, but lately she's changed. Paranoid, hostile. She hired attorneys and cut us off completely. Then it was Karen's turn. Mr. Novak, you testified that your mother agreed to add your name to the property deed. Can you describe that conversation? We were at her kitchen table. She signed the papers. What date was this? I don't remember the exact date. Sometime in early 2025. The deed amendment was filed on January 14th, 2025. Were you present when your mother signed? Yes. Interesting. Because your mother's phone records show she was in Milwaukee that entire week, visiting her sister Dorothy. Dorothy has confirmed this in a signed statement. David's face went white. Furthermore, the signature on the deed amendment was notarized by a Michael Torres at a UPS store in Naperville. Your mother has never been to that location. Mr. Torres, when contacted, stated that only you were present when the document was notarized. Brennan objected. Judge Callahan overruled him. Karen continued. Let's discuss the home equity line of credit. $165,000 borrowed against your mother's home. She didn't authorize this. She didn't know about it until 3 days before her birthday. Can you explain how a loan was secured against a property using a forged deed amendment? It wasn't forged, she agreed. She was in Milwaukee? Mr. Novak, you just testified she signed at her kitchen table. Which is it? David looked at Brennan. Brennan looked at the table. Karen then presented the financial records. Every inflated request. Every lie. The $25,000 tuition that was really $11,000. The orthodontist bill that was $1,700, not $8,500. The country club initiation fee paid with Helen's home equity. She read the numbers slowly, letting each one land. In total, Mr. Novak has received $196,000 in direct transfers from his mother over 3 years, plus $141,200 drawn against her home without authorization. That's $337,200 extracted from a 72-year-old retired nurse living on a pension. The courtroom was silent. Karen presented Dr. Patterson's cognitive evaluation. Perfect scores across all metrics. She presented the fraudulent power of attorney usage. She presented David's own financial records, showing a household income of $210,000. Hardly the struggling family he'd portrayed. Judge Callahan didn't need long. The petition for guardianship is denied, he said. Mrs. Novak is clearly competent. More than competent, she's the most organized litigant I've seen in this courtroom in months. A small ripple of laughter from the gallery. Furthermore, he continued, his voice hardening, the evidence presented raises serious concerns about financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. I'm referring this matter to the Cook County State's Attorney's Office for investigation. Mr. Novak, I strongly suggest you retain criminal defense counsel. David's face crumbled. Melissa grabbed his arm. Brennan started gathering papers. Additionally, the judge said, I'm ordering full restitution of the home equity line of credit. The fraudulent deed amendment is voided effective immediately. And Mr. Novak, if I see you in my courtroom again trying to take your mother's home, you will not like the outcome. Court is adjourned. Outside the courthouse, David tried to approach me. His eyes were red. Mom, please. I'm sorry. I made a terrible mistake. Karen stepped between us. My client has nothing to say to you. All communication goes through my office. Mom, I looked at him. The little boy with the ceramic coffee mug. The man who stole my house. You should have just asked for help, David. I would have given you anything. But you chose to steal. You chose to lie. And when I found out, you tried to have me declared insane. I was scared. I didn't know what else to do. You could have told the truth. Even once, I walked away. Barbara drove me home. I sat in my kitchen, in my house, still my house, and cried for 3 hours straight. The aftermath came in waves. The state's attorney's office opened an investigation. David was charged with forgery, fraud, and financial exploitation of an elderly person. His real estate license was suspended pending the outcome. The story was picked up by a local news outlet. The headline was clinical and devastating. I won't repeat it, but David's name was in it, and his employer's name was in it. He was fired within a week. Melissa's family, who lived in the same Naperville social circle, distanced themselves publicly. Their country club membership, the one paid for with my home equity, was revoked. By July, they'd listed the Naperville house. It sold for less than they owed. They moved to a 2-bedroom apartment in Berwyn. Melissa took a job at a dental office. David, awaiting trial, couldn't find work in real estate. He picked up shifts doing property maintenance for a management company. I took no joy in any of it. But I took no guilt either. In August, a letter arrived. David's handwriting on a plain white envelope. Mom, I know I don't have the right to ask you to read this, but I need to say it anyway. I destroyed everything. Not just between us, everything. My marriage is falling apart. Melissa blames me. The kids don't understand why we moved, why Dad doesn't go to work anymore, why we don't see Grandma. I did this. All of it. You gave me everything a son could ask for, and I repaid you with lies and theft. I'm in counseling now. I'm Khan, not because the court ordered it, but because I need to understand how I became someone who would steal from his own mother. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know I'm going to pay back every cent. It'll take years, maybe decades, but I'll do it. And if you ever want to see Lily and Ryan, I won't stand in the way. They miss you. I miss you, but I know that's my problem. Not yours. I'm sorry, Mom. David. I put the letter in a drawer. Maybe I'd respond someday. Maybe. In September, something unexpected happened. Lily called my landline. She was 12 by then. Grandma, it's me, Lily. Sweetheart, Dad said I could call you. He said it was my choice. Can I come visit you sometime? My eyes stung. Of course you can. Anytime. She came that Saturday. Barbara drove me to pick her up. We spent the whole afternoon together. I showed her how to make Frank's spaghetti sauce, the one with the secret splash of coffee. She told me about school, about her new friend at the public school she now attended, about a short story she'd written for English class. It's about a grandmother, she said quietly. I hugged her so tight. I drove her home myself. David answered the door. He looked 10 years older, thinner. He didn't try to talk to me, just nodded. Thank you, he said. For seeing her, I nodded back. My life now is quieter than before, but fuller than it's been in years. Barbara and I go to a watercolor class on Tuesday mornings. I'm terrible at it, but the instructor, a retired art teacher named Jean, says I have bold instincts. I think he's being kind. I joined a walking group at the park. 6 women, all over 60, all with stories that would fill their own videos. We walk 3 miles every morning and solve the world's problems by the second mile. In October, I did something I'd wanted to do for 40 years. I flew to Ireland. Frank's family was from County Cork. I'd always said we'd go together someday. Instead, I went alone. And I swear I felt him beside me the whole time. I stood on the cliffs of Moher and whispered, "We made it." Frank, David pled guilty in November. Reduced charges, forgery, and financial exploitation. He was sentenced to 2 years probation, 200 hours of community service, and court-ordered restitution of the full HELOC amount plus interest. The payments started in December, $800 a month. It'll take 17 years. But the judge was clear. Miss a payment, and the suspended jail time activates. It wasn't perfect justice, but it was justice. Lily visits every other Saturday now. Ryan has started coming too. Last week, he brought me a ceramic mug he painted at school. It was lopsided, and the handle was crooked, and it said, "Best Grandma," in shaky letters. I drink my coffee from it every morning. So, what did I learn from all of this? I learned that love without boundaries isn't love. It's an open door for people to walk through and take whatever they want. I learned that your own blood can betray you, and that betrayal doesn't mean you failed as a parent. It means they failed as a person. I learned that standing up for yourself at 72 feels exactly the same as standing up for yourself at 22. Terrifying and necessary. And I learned that forgiveness isn't something you give on someone else's timeline. It's something that arrives when it's ready, like spring after a long winter. Maybe mine is coming, maybe not. But I'm not waiting for it to be happy. Now I ask you, what would you have done? Would you have kept giving, kept trusting, kept quiet to preserve the peace? Or would you have drawn the line, even knowing it might cost you your son? If this story reminded you of someone, maybe yourself, I hope you'll share it. Because someone out there needs to hear that they're allowed to say no, that they're allowed to protect themselves, that choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. Thank you for listening to my story. Take care of yourselves. And remember, your home is yours. Your money is yours. Your dignity is yours. Don't let anyone, not even your own child, convince you otherwise.